The seatbelt sign flickers off. Trays click open, laughter hums around, the usual dance of travel. Malik fidgets with his toy plane, its tiny wings brushing against the edge of Richard's seat. Richard exhales sharply, that quiet, sharp breath meant to wound. "Didn't I tell you?" he mutters, not loud but meant to sting. Amira gently pulls Malik back, whispering, "It's okay, baby." But Richard isn't done. He turns, eyes narrowed. "No, it's not okay. You people never—" The rest dissolves into a sound no one expected. A slap. Quick. Brutal. Small handprint on a small cheek. Gasps ripple through the cabin. A fork drops. A child cries somewhere behind them. For a heartbeat, no one moves. The sky outside burns gold. Inside, the air freezes. Amira's voice breaks the silence, trembling but clear. "You hit my son!" Richard's tone drips entitlement. "Then maybe he'll learn to behave." Malik's eyes well up. Confusion more than pain. He leans into his mother's arms, his small frame shaking. A woman 2 rows back lifts her phone, recording. Someone whispers, "Did that really just happen?" The flight attendant rushes over, uncertain. Trapped between protocol and conscience. "Sir, please calm down," she says. Richard scoffs. "I am calm." Narration drifts in. Sometimes, racism doesn't scream. It whispers, slaps, and then smiles as if nothing happened. Amira clutches Malik tighter. Her silence now heavier than any scream could be. The plane hums again, pretending nothing changed, but everything did. ChatGPT said, "The plane vibrates softly under a lingering wave of turbulence." Malik's breath catches, small and uneven. The pink mark on his cheek glows beneath the harsh cabin lights. Amira strokes his hair with trembling fingers, whispering words too quiet to be heard, maybe prayers, maybe just the sound of holding herself together. Richard leans back, eyes forward, pretending nothing happened. His reflection glares back at him from the black screen of his phone. Unbothered, superior, safe. A woman across the aisle whispers, "Did he just hit that kid?" Her voice dies as soon as it rises. Another man coughs, pulling out earbuds, unsure whether to stand or stay seated. Silence becomes the seatbelt they all fasten, holding fear in place. Amira finally speaks, voice barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't have touched him." Richard turns, scoffing. "Then teach him how to behave on a plane." Her lip trembles. "He's 8. Old enough to learn respect." His tone carries centuries of unspoken entitlement. A soft narration cuts through. "Some slaps bruise more than skin." They echo. Across generations. Across rooms where justice never boarded. The flight attendant approaches, hesitant. "Sir, please calm down." "I am calm," Richard says, smiling with the arrogance of those who believe they're untouchable. Amira's hands clutch the seat. Her silence shifts, no longer compliance but resistance. Malik looks up at her, eyes asking if it's over. She meets his gaze, steady now. "It's not," she whispers. The cabin remains still. No one claps, no one speaks, yet something cracks. Quiet, but irreversible. Narration fades in like a breath. And sometimes, before justice stands, silence must break first. A man's voice breaks through the tense silence. Deep, calm, controlled. "Sir, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." Heads turn. From 2 rows back, Dr. Elijah Carter rises slowly. Mid-40s, measured, his tone carries authority without needing volume. He doesn't rush forward. He lets the weight of his presence travel before him. Richard scoffs. "Mind your own business." Elijah steps closer. "That child is my business now." The cabin stiffens. The attendants freeze, glancing between them. Phones lift higher, quiet justice recording itself. Elijah kneels beside Malik first, voice gentle. "You okay, little man?" Malik nods faintly, his voice caught somewhere between fear and confusion. Amira's eyes glisten with gratitude, but she says nothing. Years of being told silence is safer still linger in her throat. Elijah straightens, facing Richard. "You assaulted a child." Richard's tone sharpens. "He touched me first." "I don't have to take what?" Elijah interrupts softly. "Human contact? From skin that isn't yours?" Whispers grow. The flight attendant tries again. "Gentlemen, please." Elijah's calm slices through. "No, report it now." Before that boy learns silence as self-defense. Narration drifts through the tension. Justice doesn't always wear robes or badges. Sometimes it wears a seatbelt and refuses to look away. Richard shifts, eyes darting. His certainty begins to crumble, not from fear of punishment, but from the realization that his power is no longer invisible. A teenage boy mutters, "It's going viral already." The plane becomes still again, but it's a different kind of silence now, one that belongs to accountability. Elijah turns once more to Amira. "You don't have to be quiet anymore." Her eyes lift. For the first time, silence feels like power. "Sir, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." The words hang in the air, heavy as thunder before rain. Richard freezes, his jaw tight, hand still trembling from the slap he thought would go unseen. But nothing is unseen now. Heads turn, phones tilt. The hum of the engine is the only sound brave enough to move. Dr. Elijah Carter steps into the narrow aisle, calm but towering in presence. "Because you didn't just slap a child," he says, voice steady. "You slapped the world watching." His tone doesn't rise, yet it echoes through every row. The silence after burns more than the words. Richard forces a laugh, sharp and defensive. "Mind your business. It's just discipline." Elijah tilts his head slightly. "Discipline?" He points toward Malik, the boy's cheek still red. "Tell me, what lesson did he learn from you today? That skin decides who deserves respect?" The attendants glance, unsure. A mother clutches her son tighter. The cabin feels smaller now, no air left to hide behind. Richard's confidence falters. "You people always—" He stops. His voice betrays him before he can finish. Elijah steps closer. "Finish that." "Go ahead." The man doesn't. His lips press shut. His hand drops. The balance shifts. Quietly, irreversibly. Malik's mother whispers, trembling, "Thank you." Elijah nods once, never breaking eye contact with Richard. "You owe him that apology," he says softly. "And you owe yourself a look in the mirror." No one claps. No one speaks. But something in the air breaks. Fear gives way to shame. Narration. In that sky, above clouds and color lines, silence finally found a voice. And that voice, calm, steady, and unbroken, carried justice farther than fists ever could. The air inside the cabin feels different now. Not just heavy, but aware. Dr. Elijah Carter rises from his seat, slow and deliberate, as though every inch of movement carries history. His voice doesn't rise, yet it cuts through the hush like steel through glass. "He assaulted a child," he says, calm but absolute. Heads turn. The attendants exchange uncertain glances, torn between the manual they were trained to follow and the conscience they've learned to quiet. Richard leans back, smirking. "You one of those social justice types?" He sneers, his arrogance masking the tremor in his tone. Elijah doesn't blink. "No," he replies softly. "I'm the kind who doesn't look away." His words linger, sharp, unhurried, undeniable. Behind his calm narration breathes life into memory. The flash of police lights, his younger brother shoved against a patrol car, his mother's voice cracking when a cashier demanded to see her bag, his son, 12, coming home in tears because someone called him a word too heavy for his small shoulders. Elijah carries all of them now, standing in that aisle, wearing restraint like armor. "You'll report it," he says to the attendant nearest him, his tone steady. Before that boy learns silence as survival. The words aren't a threat. They're a plea layered in strength, a reminder of what silence costs. Phones begin to lift. The first camera light blinks red, and suddenly, the moment belongs to more than just those on the plane. Richard shifts uncomfortably, realizing too late that this isn't just an argument. It's accountability in motion. Narration. Justice doesn't always arrive in handcuffs or courtrooms. Sometimes it stands quietly, in a tailored suit, daring the world to look back. The cabin has changed. It's no longer just a plane. It's a courtroom suspended in clouds. Every stare feels like a jury's gaze, every camera light like a record of truth. The attendants whisper nervously near the galley, clutching policy binders as if they can protect them from conscience. Elijah stands still, the quiet storm in the aisle. His composure unnerves Richard, who adjusts his cufflink like a man clinging to power he no longer owns. Richard's voice cracks, sharp with panic. "He touched me first. You people always play the victim." The words spill out, ugly and desperate. A woman gasps. Somewhere in the back, a phone clicks. Another video. The truth now has proof. Elijah doesn't flinch. "You just turned a lie into a legacy," he says softly. His tone isn't rage, it's resignation. The sound of a man who's heard the same line in different decades. Narration threads through the silence. Some fight racism in courts, others in the air we all share. Elijah's eyes drift, not away but inward. He sees a young boy at a diner watching his father's hand tremble as the waiter pretends not to see them. He hears a headline echo, "No charges filed." The pain folds neatly behind his calm, too practiced to break. Richard's breathing grows uneven. He looks around, no allies left, no silence to hide behind. The passenger's eyes say it all. They've seen him. Elijah turns to the attendant. "Do what's right," he murmurs. The words land heavy, not a command, but a reminder. Narration: the sky once carried only clouds and engines. Today it carried truth, unfiltered, undeniable, and finally seen. The world doesn't wait anymore, it witnesses. Within minutes, phones across the cabin turn into courtroom cameras. Streams go live, captions flood timelines, and outrage spreads faster than turbulence. The quiet of fear is gone. In its place, the collective hum of truth being recorded. The pilot's voice trembles through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated." But no one does, not in body, not in conscience. Elijah moves calmly down the aisle, his phone in hand, voice steady. "If you saw what happened, speak up. Don't let silence make you part of it." His tone isn't commanding, it's weary, familiar. He's done this too many times in too many rooms that pretended not to see. A woman near the front nods shakily, whispering, "I saw him hit the boy." Another man adds, "And then he said," before his words crumble under shame. Richard slouches lower in his seat, his arrogance fading into something smaller, paler. "This is ridiculous," he spits, though his voice quivers now. "You people twist everything." Elijah doesn't look at him. "We don't twist it," he replies softly. "We live it." Narration fades in like wind against glass. The world had always watched injustice, but for the first time, it watched itself, in real time. Amira holds Malik closer. Her son's small hand grips her sleeve, his eyes wide, but this time, not just with fear. He watches Elijah absorbing something unspoken. That dignity isn't loud, and justice doesn't need fists. By the time the plane begins its descent, every passenger knows they're landing into a world that just saw itself reflected. Raw, trembling, and changed. Some stories don't wait for headlines, the narration closes. They write themselves mid-air. Time seems to stretch thin, every second heavy with the weight of consequence. Richard sits rigid, staring straight ahead, his jaw tight, his arrogance beginning to fracture under the silent judgment around him. The same people who once laughed politely at his comments now keep their eyes low, afraid to be associated with him, afraid to be seen as part of the silence that allowed it. The hum of the engines becomes the only sound brave enough to fill the air. Elijah remains standing, calm, steady, not victorious, but tired. His gaze lingers on Richard, not in anger, but in something deeper, pity maybe. "Power's a strange thing," Elijah finally says, voice low. "You don't notice it cracking until everyone stops pretending it's still whole." Richard swallows hard, his confidence evaporating with each breath. "You think you've won?" he mutters, but his tone lacks conviction. Elijah's response is quiet, deliberate. "There's no winning in this, only learning. If you still can." Narration drifts softly through the silence. justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just breathes louder than silence. The woman across the aisle, once indifferent, now whispers to the attendant, "He should be arrested when we land." The words ripple outward. Phones flash again. The story, already airborne, races faster than the plane itself. Richard's hands tremble on his lap. For the first time, he looks smaller, like a man shrinking under the weight of his own reflection. Elijah closes his eyes briefly, not in relief, but in mourning for every story like this one that didn't make it past the ground. Narration. For the first time, the sky felt heavy, not from altitude, but consequence. ChatGPT said the cameras flickered like tiny judgments, not loud, but final. Richard stood frozen, shirt creased, dignity shattered under the sterile airport lights. No handcuffs yet, but the silence around him was heavier than steel. The attendants avoided his gaze. A mother clutched her child closer, whispering something sharp under her breath. Elijah stepped off the plane slowly, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder. The air outside felt thinner, cleaner. Not because the world had changed, but because truth had finally been spoken aloud. "Sir, are you Mr. Elijah Ward?" a reporter called out. He nodded softly. "I'm just a passenger," he said. The real story's what people chose not to ignore. Richard flinched at the word ignore. His arrogance was gone now, replaced by confusion. That hollow kind of shame that doesn't yet understand itself. "I didn't mean," he began. Elijah's eyes met his, calm, measured. "You meant enough." For a second, even the microphones fell silent. The crowd seemed to hold its breath as police approached, not rushing, just certain. Richard's hands trembled. The narration eased in quietly, almost like conscience itself. The world didn't need a trial to see the verdict. Sometimes justice doesn't bang a gavel. It breathes in every camera flash, every headline, every silent witness who finally chose to see. As they led Richard away, the boy looked up at Elijah. "Did we win?" he whispered. Elijah knelt, meeting his eyes. "We didn't win, son." We reminded them to listen. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, not brighter, just clearer. And in that light, silence itself became evidence. ChatGPT said the courtroom hummed with the kind of silence that carries weight, the kind that holds judgment before words ever arrive. Richard sat rigid in the defendant's chair, his lawyer whispering frantically beside him. Cameras blinked at the back, catching every twitch of his jaw, every flicker of fear he tried to hide. Elijah stood at the witness stand. No anger, no theatrics. Just truth. "He didn't hit a child because of turbulence," he said softly. "He hit him because he thought no one would stop him." Richard's lawyer rose. Objection. Speculation. The judge didn't even look up. "Overruled," Elijah continued, voice steady. "The world isn't asking for punishment. It's asking for honesty." Richard shifted in his seat, hands trembling. He wanted to speak, to justify, to untangle himself from his own hate. But every time he opened his mouth, the crowd's eyes pulled him back into silence. "You called it a mistake," Elijah said. "But for us, mistakes like that don't end when the hand comes down." The narration flowed between their breaths. Privilege never sees itself clearly until the mirror stops smiling back. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Harris, do you have anything to say?" Richard's voice cracked. I don't know what I was thinking." "No," Elijah replied, calm but final. "You knew exactly what you were thinking. You just never thought it mattered." For a moment, no one moved. The judge's gavel lowered once, softly, not punishment but recognition. The narration closed like a whisper over glass. And in that quiet room, justice didn't need noise. The world had already heard. ChatGPT said, the house felt smaller than it used to. Every clock ticked louder, every creak in the floor reminded Richard of voices that no longer spoke his name. The television, once filled with news debates and laughter, now played to no one. The sound muted, the light pale against his face. He sat by the window, staring through half-closed blinds. Outside, the world went on. A delivery truck, a barking dog, a woman jogging past without a glance. "They used to know me," he whispered. "They used to care." From the kitchen, his wife's voice broke the air softly. "They still do, just not the way they used to." He turned, eyes sunken. "You think I'm a monster too?" She hesitated. "I think you finally saw what they've always seen, silence." It sat between them like smoke, thick and unmovable. He rubbed his hands together. "I said sorry. I lost everything." "Isn't that enough?" Her tone stayed calm. "You didn't lose everything, Richard. You lost the illusion that it couldn't happen to you." The narration slipped through the quiet. Regret has a sound, not of apology, but of understanding too late. Richard leaned back, closing his eyes. "They'll forget. People always do." "No," she said, standing. "They'll remember the boy. They'll remember the man who stood up. And they'll remember you. Not as you were, but as the warning you became." He didn't answer. The light through the blinds painted faint bars across his face, like shadows of a cell no court could build. And as the clock kept ticking, the world outside no longer looked at him. It had already moved on, leaving him alone with the sound of silence. The park hums with soft sounds, children playing, leaves whispering, the world moving again. Malik runs ahead, chasing a red kite that dances against the sky. His laugh rings out, not forced, not hidden, just free. Amira sits on a bench, her hands relaxed for the first time in weeks. Elijah stands a few steps away, watching like someone afraid to disturb the calm he fought for. Amira looks over, voice gentle. "You don't have to keep checking in, Elijah. We're okay now." He smiles faintly. "I know. I just wanted to see what peace looks like after everything." She exhales. "It looks like this most days, but some nights it still feels like we're back on that plane." Elijah nods. "Healing doesn't erase the storm. It just teaches you to breathe through it." A pause. Malik runs back, holding the kite string toward him. "You want to fly it?" Elijah kneels, smiling. "Nah, kid. You already took it higher than I ever could." The narration folds softly into the moment. Justice isn't loud. Sometimes it just sounds like laughter returning to the air. Amira watches him stand. "You leaving again?" "Yeah," he says quietly. "Different case. Same silence to break?" She nods, eyes glistening. "Thank you. For standing up when no one else did." Elijah picks up his briefcase, worn but steady. The embossed words catch the sunlight. Silence protects no one. He looks at the sky. Wide, open, forgiving. "Keep flying, Malik," he says. The boy grins. "I will." As Elijah walks away, the camera lingers. The kite still rising, Malik's laughter echoing like a promise carried by wind.